Good evening and welcome to the Crowd Forum. This is the 94th time we've gathered together on a Monday evening in a program that dates back to its early days as Green Mondays back in 2008. And as always, our gratitude to our host, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, to all of our sponsors is heartfelt. Tonight we welcome a new sponsor, Cool Earth, who many of you will know as a charity that's working with indigenous villages to halt deforestation and create sustainable livelihoods, and a very important piece of the puzzle that they are. Our theme tonight is the shareholder revolution. We're looking at the relationship between business and society, seen through the lens of the investor. And the conventional narrative is that the investor's preoccupation with the short term, with the next set of quarterly earnings results, loads the system against sustainability. And tonight we ask if that is changing. And there are three components, I think, to that question. The first is it proven that there is an output that sustainability or high sustainability companies outperform their peers? Secondly, are we seeing a growth in interest from the mainstream investor in environmental, social, and governance issues? And thirdly, is big data and artificial intelligence starting to create a transparency which can improve decision-making for investors? The conversation tonight, I'm very pleased to say, will be moderated by Axel Threlfall, who is editor-at-large at Reuters, and I'll jump back on at the end and just reflect on those three questions. We start tonight with Omar Selim, who is one of the most inspiring people I have met. He's very unusual for a financial entrepreneur, not least because he's very humble and very softly spoken, which are not things that one often associates with financial entrepreneurs. But I think what you'll see tonight is the extraordinary things that Arabesque partners are doing, and possibly whether they have systemic implications. Omar would be very embarrassed if I introduced him as the Elon Musk of finance, so I won't do that. But it is a great honor to have him on our stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Omar.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm a horrible public speaker and I really don't like it, I want to try my best to fulfill and live up to what you said. So thank you so much for this opportunity. It is true I'm not a loudspeaker, so I hope you can still hear me in the back of the rows. If not, just raise your hands. What I want to tell you today is the story of Arabesque. Arabesque partners, a group of people from finance, have come together to build a quant ESG fund, and I'll explain what that is. Before that, we often get confused about this name. Are you guys this fond of Dubai, or maybe you've got something to do with ballet or food, or maybe a film with Sophia Loren? So it's none of that. So just spend a moment explaining this name. Arabesque stands for art based on geometry. We have two types of art based on intuition, a drawing, a picture, a sculpture, and then there's art which is a function of mathematics. In fact, it represents the beauty of mathematics. And what we are trying to do is to understand the beauty of patterns, in fact, the information of patterns, and integrate that into our investment process. So to give you something that hopefully will keep reminding you of that, I'll ask you a simple question. Do you know why the numbers that we use are written the way they are? So raise your hands if you know, and be prepared to answer the question. Okay, I'll answer it for you. I guess you know. So it stands for the number of angles in the form. So think about a 0 has 0, no angles. A 1 has 1 angle, a 2 has 2 angles, a 3 has 3 angles, and so on. You can see it with the dots. So my point is there is a connectivity between information and form. And what we try to explain to you is how we use that concept, that technology in modern asset management. But let me go back to our story. And I will tell it to you in 3 steps. One is the founding of Arabesque. And secondly, our firm. And thirdly, our investment process. So when we started Arabesque, it was actually back at my times at Barclays. You remember Barclays sold BGI to BlackRock in 2008, 2009. Barclays had a 5-year non-compete with BlackRock. And we used that time to reinvent asset management. We had the conventional approach, which everybody knows. And I was fortunate enough to lead the approach, which we call asset management of the future. So in 2010, we asked ourselves, how will finance look in 10 years, 20 years' time? Well, we all know which one is going to be the biggest bank. Google, Apple, Facebook. Perhaps not a European bank, not in this environment. But we all know that banking and finance will change. To us, it will change in 3 components. One is commercial banking. Commercial banking will become like a utility. This is a distribution function of loans. Then we have the boutique, the Goldmans of this world, and there will always be space for that. But the real fun is going to be on the asset side. So how will people invest their money? And that's what we want to focus on. So we came up with 3 concepts about the future. Number 1 is the zero interest rate environment. So we all know we have 5 asset classes: fixed income with rates and credit, equity, commodity, real estate, foreign exchange. 60% of the world's money sits in fixed income and rates on credit, and the vast majority in interest rate products, so gilts, bonds, treasuries, that kind of stuff. What we've seen over the last 20 years, as most of us have been in the industry, is one thing, which is falling interest rates. In other words, when you are just long a piece of bond, then you just have benefited as the markets have fallen. Now we are at a situation where around the globe you have a zero interest rate environment. In fact, you give your money to the Federal Republic of Germany for 10 years, and the best you're going to get back is nothing. No yield, no return, no nothing. It is like, you've been swimming for 20 years with the current, and suddenly you've reached the end. Now you have to swim against the current, because now we're going to see rising interest rates. And as we will see this, obviously we're going to have negative mark-to-market, even if we don't sell. So one thing that is unique for fixed income and rates products is a theoretical maximum price. Think about a piece of real estate or a stock. It could be whatever the buyer and the seller agree on. But if you think about fixed income and rates product in particular, a 5-year bond with a 6% coupon has 130% theoretical maximum price. And that's where we are today. So thesis number 1 is money will have to flow into other asset classes. And equity is the only one that can handle large amounts. That's liquid, transparent, globally regulated. Real estate is much more regional. Commodity is a function of geopolitics. And foreign exchange belongs to the central bank. So thesis number 1 is equity is the new fixed income. There's no alternative to that. Regulation, everything will have to adapt to that. And if that is true, with that will come a different attitude of investors. Because with fixed income, I really care about the collateral. I don't mind if the company survives or not. But with equity, I care about the company. In other words, fixed income is a risk-transferring transaction. I transfer the risk between one party to another. In equity, I share the risk with the company. And with that, my attitude as an investor will change. Thesis number 1. Thesis number 2 is the use of non-financial information. So we are showered with big data. And the question is, how do we use those information in our investment process? It's a completely new world. What we have tried at Barclays was to understand if there's a correlation between a company's performance on ESG and the stock price of the company. So yes, we agree, we all have this information now. How does a company go about energy and water and wastewater management, and how do we handle their compliance and their other aspects? But what it actually is nothing but kind of like an X-ray. What X-ray has been to the medicine, sustainability research has become for finance. So it's a different, deeper way of looking into companies. So thesis number 2 is the use of non-financial information. And those information can be positively correlated to the stock price of a company. So it's not just good to know, you actually can generate money out of that. And the third question is, how do you express your views? We see a world of investment where we just, we put our money with indices or leverage or shortening or derivatives or repos or securities lending. But do you ask yourself, does the money actually go to companies? I mean, does it actually create goods and services and jobs? Or is it just, an investment between 2 investment banks? Is it maybe the same like we go out now, we bet, the color of the next car passing the street is going to be red or white? We can make money out of that, and we can bet around it, we can build derivatives in that, but nobody benefits from that. So we actually want to ask ourselves, what happens with the money? That's our third thesis. So if I summarize, number one, equities and new fixed income. Number two, the use of non-financial information. And number three, the true expression of money into a company. That is what Arabesque was built to do. It's built on two legs. One is sustainability research. We process over 100 billion data points. And secondly, quantitative models that can extract information out of this amount of data through pattern recognition. With that, let me just move to the next firm. So I mentioned we based on sustainable quantitative investing. And what we ultimately try to do is take sustainable investing to the retail. We believe it's something that's going to become a mainstream objective. People will ask not just how much return, how much volatility, what is the Sharpe ratio? People also ask, how did you generate that return? At the expense of child labor, corruption, pollution? I'm not interested. I want sustainable return. That is what we believe is we don't call it just the millennials, we call it Generation S. S for sustainability. It's not a function of your age, it's a function of your mindset. If you care about sustainability, you care about money, and you want your money to be invested in the right way. Some nasty people know that my father's Egyptian, my mother's German, so they say, is that a German-Egyptian bike? It is not. It is sustainability can deliver incredible performance. So we commissioned a study with Oxford University looking for the correlation between sustainability information and stock price. And in fact, this is a meta study. 80% of all the research comes to that conclusion. We cannot prove the causality, but we can prove the correlation. I cannot tell you if BMW stocks go so high because they produce good cars or because they run it in a sustainable way, but I do know that it outperforms. So it's become a mainstream thing. Many research and academics have come to the same conclusion. We now see it in the media world all the time. And in fact, the regulation is now going that way. We all know about COP21, but not everybody knows that the European Union has passed a rule that pension funds will have to consider sustainability in the future. Because it's going through local parliaments. The voting is in 2 months. It become a mainstream thing in Europe. In Singapore, the stock exchange has implemented that for corporate accounting. You have to either integrate sustainability in your accounting or you have to explain why not. We see in Japan the stewardship code. We see in Malaysia the changes in the United States and around the globe. So we think all the regulation is picking up. It is a mega trend. It will stay. People often ask, what's going to happen if Mr. Trump gets elected? I say, look, the train has left the station. It has become a mainstream thing. It's just a question of when and where, but it is coming. So I told you about the foundation of the firm. I told you about our company with London-based, FCA regulated, just a bunch of bankers who love sustainability. I myself, I'm not an environmentalist. I don't really understand a lot of that stuff. I just have a passion and a love for nature. I have a bit of understanding of finance, but zero passion for it. So I try to combine both together into sustainable finance. Okay, it's bad, I know. I'll skip this piece. The point that we try to make, and we don't have to go too much into details, that we have proven in our investment process that sustainability information about companies generate our performance. And the reason why we can prove that is because we have a rules-based quantitative process. I can literally switch the ESG filter on and off, and I can show you what the performance is with and without sustainability research. We use the common strategies. We use United Nations Global Compact standards on human rights, labor, environment, anti-corruption. We use our ESG matrix, which analyzes 200 parameters to understand what is material to a company. So if you assess companies, don't compare a software company to a mining company. Understand what is material. Mining company, you've got to know water consumption, energy consumption, health and safety, wastewater management. If you compare a bank or a software company, you've got to look into compliance and legal and governance issues. So you've got to understand what is material. You've got to rank corporates in the same jurisdiction. So don't compare a Swiss company to an Indian company. Compare same and regional in the same way. And then cut off the bottom 25%. So it's a best-in-class approach. Plus a lot of other checks that we have developed. So bottom line is that it's a combination of 200 filters that will select what goes into your portfolio. I personally love to compare to a good meal. So if you want to make a good meal, you need two things: good ingredients and a good recipe. So literally what ESG to us is just the selection of the right ingredients. Just picking up good companies, because over time it's just a better meal that you can produce. You can cover up with a good recipe even bad ingredients, but next day you will know you ate something bad. So that is really what ESG means to us. To be also fair, it is not perfect yet. We're just at the first 10% of the information quality. Our chairman, Professor Eccles, he always thinks that integrated reporting has still 90% to go. But it's good enough to generate performance as of today. Not in all the countries. So mainly in developed countries, it's still poor in emerging market countries. In fact, I could show some countries where it makes zero difference. The quality information is not good enough. It also does not work on a single company. It works on a portfolio of companies. If I take 100 companies and I run an ESG filter, I can prove that those will outperform if I don't have the ESG filter. If I just take one company or two, it's not going to work. I can also not use those information at the end in the allocation process. I can just say yes or no. So it's a binary thing. I can't say, oh, I should give a little bit more of this company, a little bit less, because their ESG is better or their ESG is worse. It doesn't work. So in other words, sustainability research is positively correlated to stock price performance. You have to differentiate by which country and the quality of the information. You cannot do it on a single company base, only on a portfolio basis. And you can only use it in a binary way. So it doesn't work as a differentiation factor. It's just a yes or no. Here, if you're interested, you can see it in a bit more detail. So when we analyze our various strategies, you can see the delta that is generated through sustainability. I think it's not necessary to go into that. And here is a long-short strategy that we've developed with a German investment bank that shows you if you take in our investment universe, the top 20 against the worst 20, you can literally generate very good money out of that. Before we wrap it up, I would love to just show you a little clip that explains our investment process a bit better. I hope it's going to work. I'll try to explain it as we talk. It looks a bit red here. I don't know why it normally looks fine. Forgive the drama, but I love that stuff. So it just explains what we do. We are a firm that implements your values into your finance. So we screen every stock on the planet. So 77,000 stocks sit in our database. We organize them by sectors and by countries. So we call this our chessboard, but you see every sector on one side and every country on the other side. I mentioned earlier on it's 100 billion data points. You can screen up and down. You can start with your preference when it comes to regions. You can pick and choose any country in and out. We monitor 12 key parameters of every company: the ESG score, the free float, the UNGC momentum, rule book compliance, and so on. And what it is now is nothing but a selection process. It's just filter after filter. So you have a regional selection. You can pick and choose developed countries. You can choose emerging market countries. As I mentioned, it's highly tailor-made. The first question is liquidity. I mentioned we want to be suitable for retail. I want people to be able to use it like an ATM. So I'll set standards: $1 billion market cap, 10% free float, $3 million daily turnover. Next is AGR score, accountancy and governance rating. We cut at the bottom 10%. It's pure statistical. It's what we call the fingerprint of fraud, just to avoid what we had Sun Edison or Toshiba, all were out-selected through this filter. UNGC, you can pick out those which are on breach or even those which are on the watch list. ESG performance, we take out the bottom 25%, and you can see everything that you set as a value gets reflected in the investment universe. Leverage ratios, cash ratios, and finally, the industry exclusion. What actually does the company do? Do they produce alcohol, weapons, tobacco, gambling, things you like or you don't like? We try to understand where the revenues come from, and we eliminate accordingly. So what's left over then becomes your investment universe. That's our ingredients, the top 1,000 stocks past all these screens. Now it's a fundamental analysis. So you want to avoid to overinvest in companies where there's a bubble, like Unilever, for example, because it's so low, so little supply on the ESG side. So we go through a rigorous process. G-score is growth factors, F-score is financial factors, and earnings pressure is sell-side analyst views, distributed over 5 strategies. to balance the portfolio. After that, it goes into the momentum. That's where the machine learning starts. So the system picks the combination of the best 100 stocks. So we don't care if your money is in Bloomberg or Google or Apple, Bloomberg can't be, in Google, Apple, or Facebook. What it does is the system combines the best group of stocks, and it will risk manage it. So markets are volatile, it goes into cash. Markets are positive, it goes into equity. This currently ranks in the top 5% of global equity funds, with our performance of about 7% over the MSCI in 2 years. And it is available for everybody. Thank you so much.